What's up? Good morning. Another morning drive here on our way out to do a little work with company. Here's here's some thoughts for us this morning. I think there was an article about how students were unhappy that teachers are using AI in their teaching, and they felt cheated. I guess I would say. And the main reason I think they felt cheated was because the teachers were not transparent and they were being a little hypocritical. Teachers were telling students they can't use AI and that it's cheating. And so when the students are using AI, it's cheating, but when the teachers aren't using AI, it's not cheating. And I think that it's confusing for students. Teachers, if you're using AI, which you should be, being transparent with students that AI has been used, I think helps them understand how it should be used. And if you're doing that in the classroom while you're creating assignments or while your students are doing their assignments and you are there guiding them through the process and you're allowing them to ask questions and you're guiding them through their thought process. And you, by doing that, you also get to hear their thought process, by the way. So as you're walking around to the students as they are doing their assignments and as they're using AI, as you've instructed in the assignment or in the class, and you walk them through that, there's a great discussion time where you can hear about how students are processing the information that is being given. I mean, unfortunately, for some teachers, that means that you are going to be in your class talking to students. And I know for some of us, that's really the part where you get to get a better understanding of what they do and don't know, and where they're getting stuck. What part are they getting stuck on? What part do they get well? And that thought process of how they're doing it, why they choose what they choose to say, how they're analyzing it. There's some steps that they probably have missed, and that's a really good point, a really good part of teaching, or good teachable moments where you can then, interject, add some questions like, did you think about this? Or when you were talking about that, how did that change the way you were thinking? And based on what you found, now what conclusions can you draw? Again, I know this may not work for every single subject, but there's ways to integrate those things, I think, with every subject. I've worked with math instructors, and we've talked about, how using AI, we can create assignments that will allow for students to work through the process and help identify really at a granular level where their mistakes are being had. Like, is it just arithmetic, or is it them understanding the question, what the question's being asked, or what question's being asked? So, this is I think for students, if you're telling them you can't use AI, and then all of a sudden, they find out that you're using AI to help you grade or help assess assignments or assessments, I can see how they're frustrated because it's just pretty hypocritical. And, especially at, MIT or a school like that where, it's very prestigious. I think students, want to make sure that their teachers are in the loop, that they're not having something auto grade their submissions. And auto grading has been around for a long time. A lot of publishers had software that would go along with the textbook, and it was a companion website to the textbook, and you can have students go to these companion websites. They would be able to get a lot of what's happening with AI in the classrooms. You're not having to go to a companion's website anymore. You can technically do a lot of that extra stuff that you were getting from a publisher. You could actually integrate that into your own classroom using AI to be able to do that. And a lot of teachers, I remember when we went to open educational resources, one of the main holdouts from teachers was that, well, there's no ancillary material, there's no extra stuff like our publishers give us. And I get that. It's easier. It was way easier when you had a publisher who put together all of these quizzes and all these extra assignments or projects, or they had all those things for you packaged based on the textbook. And teachers could just do that. Or they would have knowledge checks built into that companion website that could then get pushed over to your Canvas course shell or Blackboard or whatever you were using. And I think teachers nowadays, they don't necessarily need all that stuff. They can build it very specifically to their class course, the way their teaching style, their methodology, whatever they want to, however they want to implement their class. Are they more project based? If it is, then again, you could create something very, very similar, I guess you could say, to what would be in a companion website, and you can build that directly into your assignments now with using prompting, sample prompts for students to use. And one of the things that I've had to do is add a AI use log to my assignments, where students have to list and have a log of what they did. And that was, something that I review. It's just another, part of my assignments now that I've integrated, because in all my assignments, I allow or even encourage students to use AI in the process of what they're doing in that assignment and project. So I want to know, what are they putting into ChatGPT? I want to know, what their prompts look like. Is their prompt a 4-word sentence that says, write this here, and copy and pasted the entire assignment in there? That's what students started doing initially with assignments. And so I just decided that I was going to help them understand the process. And really, most of my assignments are step-by-step processes. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do this. And in those steps, there's time cut out for, different parts, whether it's discussion, review, verification. And, we just go through that process, which for me is the academic process for using AI. And by doing that with my students, especially early on in the semester, it just becomes part of their, part of their process. And not only in education, but or in my class, but as they use AI in general for their life, in their life, they have a process where they're not just necessarily saying one word sentence, or one thing, not one word sentences, but like one sentence. They're being very descriptive in their prompts. Their prompts could be a paragraph, or longer, and that's allows them to get a far better result, and oftentimes a lot less editing that they need to do if they're very, very prescriptive and descriptive in their prompts. So this is not a one-time deal. It's not a one sentence syllabus statement. I also think that students, because education is not really. I think like the LLM models, the AI models like ChatGPT and Claude or Anthropic and OpenAI are trying to help teachers, knowing that there's this big gap in, or I guess big range in what teachers think about AI, and in the use in the classroom. They're trying to create educational models where teachers could go in and get ideas and understand more. But I've gone and done a ton of professional development trainings for higher education specifically. I've done stuff with K through 12 as well. And, I encourage them to go and check out the free trainings that these LLMs, these AI platforms are putting out, because they're really telling you best practices in using the models. And obviously I go through that as well in my trainings. But I mean, it's just one of those things. I think teachers are going to be the leaders. I just saw President Trump. He was on TV yesterday talking about how he wants the United States to be the leader in the world of AI, and that they're building these data centers to be able to make sure and drive that, and energy is a big deal, and all of this stuff. And one of the guys who came on after him, and he was called, I guess they called him the AI czar. I don't know who that guy is. I can't remember his name now, but he said something I thought was really interesting. He said that you're not going to lose your job to AI, but you are going to lose your job if you're not using AI. And in business, I'm working with companies a lot in the construction industry. I've worked with HR, medical facilities, and businesses. I've worked with a lot of them trying to help them understand, or try to help them understand how to implement AI and automations into their business. And I can tell you that a requirement for a lot of, they're getting training for their staff and their team because they want to be more efficient. They want to have people who understand how to leverage AI in their business for either, more efficiency with time, better quality output, less errors, still human in the loop. But if you don't know how to prompt, if you don't know a process of making sure verification, these things are important. You just can't take, if you're working on a $10 million project and you you even build a custom GPT that knows something about your business and you get an output, you still have to verify that. In some, again, I feel like it's the 80-20 rule where, 80% of repetitive tasks can be done by AI, but the 20% of that human in the loop is that human who has the knowledge to be able to verify. Looking at it, checking, yes, that makes sense. Or, I think you missed a page here. Can you go back and review that and, make those changes? Use this language. All of those things I think are, the human in the loop. That's the person that has the current knowledge. And for students who don't have the current knowledge, it's even more important to teach them how to verify and teach them how important it is for them to verify. And as they verify, they actually are getting information, because as they're reading saying, does this match with this, or is this what AI said and this is what the article said, they're going back and forth saying, yes, that's true. And as they are reviewing it, they're actually, it's a form of learning, because if they find that it's not true, they will remember that what was true. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a big, you can, this skill, this AI use skill, like so many other skills that we've learned in education, from kindergarten all the way through college, if you've gone to college. But part of that is just a process. Part of that is, organizing your time, organizing your thoughts. Part of that is understanding how you can remember, learn things, implement them. But let's, understand that this generation is there won't be another generation that has not used AI. Ooh. Highway patrol, just in case, dog, just in case. So, this is the last generation of students who've not used AI has come and gone. This year, this fall, more and more students are going to be exposed to AI. Last year there were less. In my classes, there were still some students when I would tell them, hey, we're gonna, use AI to help with this. There were students that were like, I don't have an account. I've never even tried it. I've heard about it, but all I've heard is it's cheating, so I don't want to do it. And so that was like last fall. Last spring, I may have had one or two students in my class that didn't have some kind of like LLM or chat, model, whether it was Gemini, they've used that, or Copilot, ChatGPT, or Claude. I mean, between those, I had, 95% of my students had something. I anticipate that with this new group of students starting in August, that number is going to even be smaller, but their proficiency or their understanding of how to use AI is still low. Their AI literacy is still low. And so, my goal really in this semester is to continue to help with AI literacy in the classroom for students. I mean, the struggle is how confusing it is to students that in Mr. Fortune's class, they're being asked to do these things, right? They're asked to use AI. They're asked to document it a certain way. They're asked to do those tasks. And then they'll go right into the next classroom, their next class for the day. And that teacher is telling them that they completely cannot use it. They're only going to use paper in the classroom. And so I can see how it's confusing for students. It would be confusing for me as a student. And you know, the crazy part is they're going to leave that classroom that says you can absolutely not use AI, and they'll be in the classroom not using AI, maybe, but they're going to walk out of the classroom, and guess what? They're going to use it again. They're going to use it. It's not that they're not going to use it. So it's like saying don't use the internet. I mean, can you imagine if you're a teacher right now, and maybe there's a lot of them out there. I don't know. I mean, at my college, there's not. I wouldn't say that there's not a lot out of the faculty that we have specifically. I don't think there's very many teachers that would be excited if you told them tomorrow, hey guys, by the way, we're taking a new stance on the internet, and no internet. Students can't use it. Teachers can't use it. No internet. Not happening. That you're not going to be able to get information from the internet anymore. You're going to have to go to the library, find a book, go through the book. I mean, I don't know about you. Go to a library that has books, and then take notes, bring those back to class. Now I know romantically, some of us are like, yeah, that would be awesome, because then the students would know our pain, because when we were there in their situation, that's what we had to do. And look how we turned out. You know, it was harder, took longer. So that's what they need to do. I don't want to do that anymore. And again, maybe I'm the minority of teachers out there, but man, that just does not sound good. Does not sound to me. I mean, technically, I think about it, in the same regard, and I know, people don't like these kind of arguments, but I mean, technically, you could ride a horse across the country. I mean, I think about the early settlers that came over in wagon trains. I watch TV shows like 1852 or Yellowstone or stuff like that. Even 1852's like earlier. And these guys are coming out west. And I look at, so they're coming out west in a wagon, some horses, and they're moving at like 1 mile an hour across rivers, across rocks, mountains, through the mountain ranges. I kept thinking to myself, man, there's no roads. That wasn't that long ago. Really wasn't. 1852? 1952, 100 years. I mean, we're talking about, what, 170 years? 170 years seems a long time, but generationally speaking, it's not that long. I mean, at the end of the day, we look at how education is, we're still, for the most part, some of us teachers are still hooking our horse to a wagon. Because that's the way it's been done. That's the way I did it. We gotta unhitch the wagon. Horses are still great for certain things. And, they're great to look at. They're fun to ride. But if I want to go cross country, I want to fly. I don't even really want to drive. I want to fly. And, our students have the ability to take planes, and I think some teachers are still trying to, put them in cars or some teachers still trying to tell them to take a wagon, covered wagon with a couple horses and some ox. And, a lot of those people died on their trip because it was just tough. And look, people die in airplane crashes, but I'll tell you right now, it's a lot less than even driving in cars. I for one would rather fly, and I feel like students would too. But they got to be able to understand how that works. It's I know, crazy analogy, but you know, it's just frustrating sometimes. Even on my own campus, it's frustrating where I started trying to talk to our campus about AI literacy and AI in the classroom, and even a college, a district-wide understanding of what's going on with AI 2 years ago, when really right after OpenAI released ChatGPT and I got to use it for the first time. I literally had a meeting with the college president and was like, what are we doing? We got an idea of what we're doing here. And I think, like a lot of educational groups and education in general, most educational facilities do not want to be first. Let's just see how these other guys do it. We'll let them take the lead, we'll learn, and then we'll adopt some of the things they're doing, and then we'll just try to change it a little bit for what we do. And those educational institutions are, one, they're capturing a lot of the money in AI innovation. And I think as leaders, that's awesome. I'm happy for them because obviously we need somebody. We need some group of people that are forward thinking, that are risk taking. The school that is, the woman that created the school in Texas that is using AI as teachers, and they're doing 4-day or 4-hour work days, basically school days of education with AI, and then they're doing the rest of the time with their teachers doing soft skills. That teacher, I think, is just, probably so many people thought she was crazy that, I don't know if she was a teacher, but the person that created that, probably a lot of people said, dude, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. It'll never work. And, my guess is that it's not going to take too long, based on the results, based on the roles, not only the testing results, but the experience that the kids are having and sharing about what school is like now. And they're using this word called fun, which I'll tell you what is, after about kindergarten or preschool, the word for fun in school was usually lost to recess and field trips. And these kids are having a great time, and they're learning, and they're coming in at all different levels educationally, and they're leaving in the top 90th percentile. The results just speak for themselves, and because of the way the Trump administration is talking about how education is going to go back to the states, I have a strong feeling that the states are going to look very closely at this model, and that's a jet for sure. And those kids are excelling, which is probably to be expected, basically, when they all have one-on-one teachers and they're all learning, able to uh, learn at a pace, um, and learning with their learning style. They're all able to ask questions. I feel like a lot of times students don't ask questions because they don't want to feel stupid in front of their classmates. They don't want to feel stupid in front of their teacher. And when you have an AI instructor or an AI teacher that is there and really holds no judgment, and you're asking questions, you can ask a ton of questions and you don't have to feel stupid because no judgment there. And that's a real thing. Those are my thoughts this morning. It's a long one, 30 minutes or so. So take care and be the AI leader in your organization.